Commissioner Green, Board Commissioner Love, see Board Commissioner Johnson, Board Commissioner Hewitt Garcia. Are there any other commissioners at this time? I know we have a few who will come in afterwards, but to respect time, we'll go ahead and move forward. So the question was, how did we get here? What was your thinking? What is the purpose, and how did we arrive at today's current budget? So in the previous history, November 2023, there was an exploration of 675 jobs at that point, an anticipation of what could be $150 million budget gap. And here's some of the statements that were made. Commissioner Calvo said we're using public tax money, so we have to be responsible to taxpayers and we have to be responsible to students. So it's the balancing act, and how do we make smart and oftentimes tough decisions on what is best for our students? They're tough decisions and what's best for students and the community as school leaders look at the trimming next year's budget. This will be a realignment to support schools, said former interim superintendent. Also stated, a list of considerations to adjust to the loss of ESSER funding, including improving academic strategies, infrastructure planning, streamlining operations, and realigning central office staff. Bishop Green says sometimes when we talk about positions, those positions were positions that may have been left and never been filled, adding that those are some of the positions that Mscs could consider cutting, and goes on to say that she made a promise to parents of Mscs students, we will never take away money from the budget and cut the instruction from or the resources that we provide for our students. So thank you, board commissioners, for your stance. And generally in November, as you heard on Tuesday, this is what the exploration consisted of: reviewing cabinet level positions and support, reviewing a job analysis and needs assessment of executive directors and senior managers and managers, a job analysis and assessment of non-academic senior advisors, highly specialized advisors, and advisors in general, taking a look at alternative schools and seeing if we needed to reduce from the programs, duplication of resources, aligning all project management departments, combining health departments, health services, coordinated school health promotions, aligning district financial positions to the finance department, combining adult and student virtual high schools. Let's look at improving fidelity of academic strategies was a part of the exploration back in November. Specialized education assistance, tutoring, extended learning, priority schools, extra hour, specifically elementary schools. How do we gain operational efficiencies? We decentralize the one-to-one device operational budget. We take a look at reducing district-wide travel. We reduce the current bus routes. We work with MLGW on discounts for utilities. We look at performance-based contracts, a reduction of low-enroll programs, and how do we protect the schools? We review grade band to regional model. We pay realignment for instructional coaches working to support schools. We move the reset room assistance to federal IDEA grant. So that was in November as an exploration of some things and areas that the districts should look at. So for a pre-entry plan, when I was selected as superintendent on February 9th, we went to work. And we went to work in these core areas: governance and board relations, provided a 100-day plan, engaged individually with each board member February 19th through the 21st to get an understanding of individual initiatives, identify the opportunities and for growth and innovation, get some names of key leaders that they thought would be important for me to connect with, and then organize our campus visits, which ultimately turned into Voice Improves Partnerships, the VIP tour across 9 districts. Community relations, plan that citywide VIP tour, publish the plan, share your hopes and dreams survey that we released, attend all the events in the community, and then begin one-to-one small group connections, the media meet and greet, youth justice and education center visit, talk to elected officials, parent and caregiver, advocacy groups, alumni, and the list goes on, and then certainly take a look at staff relations and capacity, beginning one-to-one and small group connections with executive leadership team, bus drivers, custodial teams, support professionals, the ELC, district ambassadors, teacher advisory councils, and associations. And then I requested briefing papers from senior leaders to review all of their areas of bodies of work. What is it that they do and the individuals that they oversee do, and how does ultimately this work contribute to the outcomes for students and supporting staff? review the vacancies, the patterns, recruitment, and professional learning plans, review the organizational charts, conduct right-sizing review to determine alignment to achievement and maximizing service to schools and the district community, and then review communication, meeting, and decision-making protocols, and then certainly reviewing much of the same in operations and finance, and more importantly, student achievement and how all of this goes together for how we elevate the excellence of Memphis-Shelby County Schools. The 100-day plan, more than 100 calls, texts, emails, and meetings with board commissioners, campus visits with each commissioner, establishing regular meeting times, most of them weekly, some bi-weekly, and then certainly availing myself at any time via the method of choice. We established a transition team called Legacy Legends, and then the student arm of Legacy Builders. We reviewed policies, governance documents, I reviewed state accountability protocols, and then certainly we've established our first retreat is held, and we now have our second retreat coming up. Community relations, more than 6,000 folks attended, more than that, shaking hands, kissing babies, and really just having an understanding, gaining an understanding as we stretched ourselves across the 901 community, listening to the voices of the individuals who want to see something new, something elevated for their kids, for themselves, for the city, for the state. Staff relations and capacity, listening to and connecting with cabinet leaders, receiving their proposed organizational chart changes, digging deeper into the directors and some managers, and then having some conversations with the additional staff as well. I sent out a SOUP Insight survey. And then some of the responses, just very few, but I ask a question that says, does the current structure of your team permit the highest level of support to be provided to schools? What specific improvements would you recommend to strengthen the current structure? These are just a few of the more than 1,000 responses. Streamline processes, eliminate duplication of efforts, hold employees accountable for performing their duties. It's about 50-50. Have subject matter experts at all levels of management, restructure to ensure people, staff, focused for outcomes, but student-centered for achievement. All areas can improve. Our goal is to support the children and teachers, realign duties based on ability, hold people accountable. I would like for the entire department to be on one page when it comes to reporting numbers. There's a lot of double working. Better communication and transparency. The district needs a new comprehensive service-oriented organizational chart. I believe that we have too many supervisors and not enough individuals in the actual schools with students on a daily basis. So I took a look at operations and finance. More than 235 individuals attended our business huddle, certainly digging into the operational aspect of the district, looking at transportation, nutrition services, custodial, grounds and maintenance. I visited, as you heard me say the other night, the freezer and the nutrition services to see what the work looks like from arrival to exit. I learned that they are generally underpaid and are doing a lot of work to make sure that all of our kids have some semblance of a meal every day. I took a look at the financials and dug very, very deeply, reviewed every single contract that the district has line by line, and I reviewed them connected to outcomes. The team supported, either suggested to kick or keep the contract based on the same. Essentially, if it doesn't work and it's not helping kids and it's not supporting leaders, then we kicked it. That got us about 33 million, I believe, at this point. Took a look at student achievement, always, first, foremost, and forever. Spoken to more than 2,200 students who have asked probably some of the more profound questions and made some pretty high demands. How are you going to fix my gym? What are you going to do about the classroom where I don't have a teacher and the teacher who doesn't care? Can you get us a principal in the class, in the school? We've had more than 3, and I've only been here for 2 years. And so listening to our students, can you hold our parents more accountable? Can you do something about the bus? And believe it or not, they didn't say a whole lot about the food because they were more focused on the infrastructure. Hey, sometimes it leaks on my head. Sometimes I fall and I hurt my knee because the cracks in the floor. We don't have doors on our restrooms, and so it makes it uncomfortable for us to use the restroom. This goes on and on and on. And so when we think about the impact on student achievement, we certainly know that the analysis of the same did not prove to render or yield high results, but certainly we've demonstrated some growth in some key areas. We have budget pressures. Fixed costs, inflation on fixed costs, certainly. Charter schools, we love charter schools, but the understanding here is to ensure that we know that when we receive the funds for charter schools, it literally passes through. We don't keep any of it, we receive it and distribute it accordingly. Compensation, and so you heard me mention about nutrition workers, but we have craftsmen, building engineers who need more money because we need to hire them and fill vacancies so that we can improve the way we service the more than 2,000 work orders that we have for our buildings that is growing. Deferred maintenance for our buildings and stadiums. I think it's about $65 million in deferred maintenance for our athletic fields alone, and we haven't even touched them. Recurring one-to-one device refreshes, so it costs money. Once you get the device, we have to keep refreshing them. That costs millions of dollars. 24 multilingual teachers, textbook adoptions, expanding pre-K, the additional materials that we need that could be named on and on and on. How do we sustain teacher salary? I think Board Chair Green asked during the retreat. It's great that we've invested, but can we make sure that we sustain it? The cost of living raises, are we going to reflect that in the pay for individuals? The new builds, soft costs, we took that out of the new bills and said we will own that so that the city, the community could see the actual construction costs. Those presentations were made on Tuesday as well. The general office secretary doesn't make enough, and so you know the first person you see generally after security, if they are in the building, is the secretary. The secretary runs the building. I think we all agree, right? And so increases for them are necessary. But what's at stake? This was April 1st, teacher vacancies. Today, 552, so we've dwindled down just a little bit from the 617. Total vacancies for teachers in the classroom, and then general school supports, meaning professional school counselors, graduation coaches, and additional supports in that manner, we have 1,069. Unlicensed teachers, we had 1,011. Which was around 17.3%, and we think about the impact of having an uncertified teacher in a classroom. Although the heart is there, we generally understand that a lot of support.
Good evening. Welcome to the Shelby County Board of Education's April.
Hello. Welcome. For those who are arriving, welcome again. We're good? It's okay. No worries. It's all is well. Hey, take me where you like me. It's okay. You're good. Hey, we don't have anywhere to go. It's a schedule. All right. So the current enrollment, as of April 1st, it was 105,000, just over that. We've grown just a little bit since then. Attendance rate on April 1st, 8.3% of students were having a little trouble attending schools. If we look at the truancy rate, 40%. Look at the chronic absenteeism rate, you're looking at ASD schools are not listed here, but we're receiving schools back from the ASD, and they carry 51% chronic absenteeism. More than half of the students did not attend, and they will be coming back to us. So how did we inform the proposed budget? And if you aren't sure where it is, those are the steps there. You can visit scsk12.org/finance. You'll see a nice menu. Knock it down to the bottom and go to reports/documents, and then you will find the proposed budget. Central office employee reductions, and so all of that analysis ultimately led us here. In the academic operations and student support, a reduction of 116, chief of academic, 147, chief of staff, wiped the entire office, deputy superintendent, a reduction of 12, family and community engagement, reduction of 19, human capital and talent, reduction of 17, information technology, 2, internal audit, 1, safety and security, 3, total 326, central office employee reductions, and this is not any specific fund in terms of where they landed. What could those look like? You're welcome to see the titles there. Same location online for what those particular titles consisted of. Far right-hand side will show you the variance. Far left-hand side will tell you what the job description is, and you can go and see that information that you'd like for yourself. So what did we do? We put the resources where the magic happens. Generally speaking, social workers, graduation coaches, family engagement specialists, school psychologists, instructional coaches, behavioral specialists, homebound teachers, parent liaisons, reset assistants we kept, specialized education assistants we kept, and then I added a dean of students to support those elementary schools who don't generally receive an assistant principal, but so that We can build the pipeline for our leadership, and by providing hands-on experience while providing someone who can support with observation, someone who can support with lifting the academic lift, someone who can really support, because I'll define it, with monitoring the impact of specialized education assistants, because they will not be copying papers, they will not be covering classes, they will support small group instruction because we got a lot at stake. And so we kept all of these positions, and where they were once seated at central office, we just shifted them to the schools. That's it. We support schools, so we support schools in schools. Specifically speaking about social workers, nurses, school psychologists, for me it was about looking at specifically where our medical issues are, where they're highly concentrated, and so the team brought me school by school, name by name of students, what the actual medical issue is. I can tell you who has diabetes, and I can tell you who just got back from homebound by school. So make sure that there's a nurse there so that we can provide the support. Also, where there's a nurse, they can serve the 2 or 3 schools that are in the proximity of that same school if we're unable to provide a nurse just nearby. Where there is a nurse, then make sure we provide a social worker somewhere else. Where there's a social worker, make sure we provide a school psychologist. Do they all do the same thing? No. But can they all support a similar purpose and goal? Absolutely. And so that was the purpose of lifting that there. Graduation coaches definitely belong in the school and not a central office. Our graduation rate before this year, we don't know the number, of course, was 81.5%. That means we left a few kids out, right? 14.7% dropout rate. Graduation coaches will move into the schools, and we'll double that, but I'll talk about it a little more later. Family engagement specialists, we need you in the schools. We need you to be one of the first faces that parents can connect with when something is challenging, when there's an opportunity to go and sit in a conference with them so that you can support with asking the questions. If you don't see this as special, I need you to know this is one of the most important positions that exist. When a parent feels supported, they get engaged. And when parents get engaged, we get changes, and we need changes. And so when we talk about elevating the expectations of our families, this is how we do it, by providing the supports. It's uneasy and uncomfortable to be a parent in this 21st century. It doesn't look like it did even when I was in school. And so it feels uncomfortable. You feel lost. It's a lot of technology, a lot of things. Go online and check this. Generally speaking, but we will get back to issuing paper, progress reports, paper, school report cards, so that you can tangibly touch and see where your child is. We've already added where your student has placed on iReady so that you can see the disconnect between all A's and not on grade level, right? And start asking the right types of questions and making the connections to the right types of support. And so it's generally inefficient if we have a book room and a food pantry and a uniform closet, and we purchase all of these items and resources and materials with Title I dollars, and no one knows they exist, or they don't know what to ask for. And so if we put the supports in the schools, we truly wrap around and become what it means in essence and in reality to be a community school, then we can get this work done. The Dean of Students, I've explained, specialized education assistants, I see you, but I really want us to see this work move forward. And so we have some parameters in place and some intensive supports forthcoming to ensure we get our return on the investment of the hard work that you're delivering in the classrooms. Homebound teachers, we simply just move them from central office to a school. They generally have a caseload, but you can also support in the school as a homebound teacher. So the FAQs, why now? Just went through the current status, but I wanted you to see it written this way. Currently, 78% of students are not reading proficiently yet. Yet is most important. We're not stuck here, right? Yet, as determined by the state, currently 83% of students not demonstrating proficiency in math yet. And so all the things that you've just seen, I just wanted to make sure we emphasize that yet. How does the reorganization impact staff? So with 1,069 school-based vacancies, the reorg helps address the nationwide teacher shortages. And this is a phase 1 review of central office departments. It was conducted to realign the services, everything that I mentioned earlier, but this is how we get to the magic, right? Making sure that we have the right staff, but making sure we have them in the right places. How will compensation and benefits be impacted? So generally, it's unique to each employee, and so there's the support there. But I will share you've received what will happen and what could take place if you are impacted. The overarching thing that I want to emphasize is there will be no gaps in pay. You won't miss a check, and certainly your benefits will continue to run. And generally speaking, if you choose to exit the district, your last paycheck will be August the 16th, and then certainly your benefits will run through August 31st. That gives you a 60-day runway. Are employment opportunities available for Memphis-Shelby County School staff affected by the reorg? Absolutely. There are, how many vacancies? 1,069. We have more than enough opportunities to take advantage of employment with the district. Take a look online at scsk12.org/careers. Personnel are available to support you for any open positions that you might see. How will I know if I'm one of the impacted employees? Impacted employees will receive an email. This says about your new placement. And so I'd like to take this pause to just address that it was never my intention to insult anyone. It was never an intention to degrade the work that you do. It was certainly never the intention to communicate to you verbally, non-verbally, or any otherwise that you are not important. And while I am a teacher first, foremost, and forever, and I do not view going into the classroom as a demotion, I do understand how that could feel as an employee who's taken a $25,000 pay cut in the middle of the year. I've had my title changed 5 times in 1 year. I do the work, but I understand what it feels like. And so to that end, while I understand my intentions, the impact is what you have to sit with. The impact was heavy. And so for that, if you have received a letter, I will honor the placement that we've given you and that you've accepted. If you have not received a placement, your letter will simply say that your conclusion of service is June 30th, and we will support you for the balance of the way with whatever you'd like to do in terms of applying for a position that you might see online. We'll make sure all of the vacancies are listed for you. There are a few new positions that are coming as well. Those will be made visible for you as well. So in my efforts to do and ask the team to strategically place based on where the highest needs are, we offended people, and that is not the goal. And so those 423 who have received it, I'll honor the 171 who have responded, and the others, we thank you. And then the 223 or so that remain, we will support you if you would like to apply. I think that's the most balanced way forward. I still feel very good about the initial decision to be both empathetic and offer where we needed the supports most, while also considering giving job security to personnel who would not otherwise receive it. And so I apologize to you if you were one of those who were made to feel insulted, and I acknowledge that the way forward from this day forward is to allow you to apply for whatever suits your heart, and we will support you accordingly, and then we will move forward. What support is available for employees impacted by the reorganization? Human Resources is ready for you. There are resume writing workshops. Don't forget, we do have the Employee Assistance Program that's always available to you through your benefits. There's online yoga, all sorts of things that I think are provided through this. So, will affected employees receive a severance package? No, we will not offer severance package pay to employees, but I did generally share that your last check would be August 16th, and then your benefits will run through August 31st if you are one of those impacted employees, and you certainly can request your vacation days to be paid out if you are someone who has vacation days. The anticipated timeline for impacted employees, the final day in your current role will be June 30th, meaning you no longer have to report back to your current work location, and HR will provide additional detailed steps to help you navigate the transition. We are on a pause, so those additional 223 would not be made available until after next Tuesday, barring the board's approval or non-approval of the budget. Please confirm where there will be no gap. I've done that. Will the newly created step and lanes only apply to new hires July 1 and forward. And so we did generally share that we have a revamped our salary schedule to address the inequities that exist in pay. And so that is for jobs from July 1 forward. Everyone else can receive and expect a compensation analysis to begin throughout the 24-25 school year, and then you will receive an ample amount of time what that potential impact could be for you in terms of a salary that would be in place and implemented July 1 of 2025. Will anyone with a title change be doing the same work they were doing before the title change? And so your work will align with your title. I think there are very few instances where you have the same title and you're doing the same work, and that would be because you're moving from 12-month to 10-month or something like that. And so your placement July 1 might be the same, but it's in a different location, or the calendar year that you were expected to work shifted from 12 months to 10 months or 10 and a half months. So those particular circumstances exist, but not in great numbers. Will there still be proximity learning? Yes, we will still have proximity learning, but our goal is to fill those classes with certified teachers. And so we have about 70 education support professionals that were in those classes, of course, more courses. So we're taking a look at the master schedules generally, and I looked at it again today. We have classes with 5 kids, 2 children. I think we all understand we got to merge. And so when we close those courses, we can generally provide those students access to a certified teacher as opposed to someone who is teaching online or through the television. And so that's what we mean by removing proximity learning, but we hold on to the contract because generally speaking, something in this case is better than nothing. What is the plan for alternative schools? So in previous experience, alternative schools have always had a negative connotation. That's where you send the quote unquote bad kids. And so for me, I haven't met a bad kid. And so we will rebrand and upgrade to an accelerated learning campus. So this means our students who are off track, generally speaking, and we'll define that threshold. Sometimes it's been by 7 credits, which equates to about 14 classes. And if you're a senior and you're off by 14 classes, that's pretty hopeless, and you begin to feel very helpless. But if you go to an alternative space where they're on a trimester, then you can accelerate a lot faster. Gives you the hope that you thought was sapped and drained from you. You have the opportunity to return back to your home school and graduate with your peers if you'd like, or you can graduate from the alternative location, the accelerated learning campus. And so that is how we were able to do the work that I led in Detroit, moving the graduation rate 2 times back to back, ultimately almost increasing it by 10% for the first time in a decade. That was our greatest strategy, if you will, that seemed rather natural for me. It's just put kids where they can receive resources. These schools, our alternative schools, will also sit with Dr. Richmond in our SOUP schools, so you can expect to receive those additional supports that we're placing in schools as well. How many schools have principal vacancies? I'm not sure if you all pay attention to principal vacancies, but 7 is great. So we have 7 right now. I have interview scheduled for about 3, but we'll fill them all before June 30th. So every school will open with a principal to lead their school. We're just making sure that we get the best folks before our students and leaders and ensure that they have a runway of at least 3 to 5 years. So we have 7 schools right now with principal vacancies. So all of that review and taking a deep analysis of finances led to what you're seeing here, an administrative office realignment. Started with our board office, our executive services, to generally provide more support to board commissioners. They are elected officials, and generally speaking, when I arrived, there were a few things missing that I thought would be more beneficial. And then in speaking with each commissioner, they lifted some opportunities that I believe we could get into the gaps with. And so for each commissioner, you see the board chair, the board vice chair, and the former board chair will have a senior executive services advisor. Is Ms. Clark here? Yep, there she is. It's Ms. Clark. A communication specialist so that they can communicate directly with you as there's their constituents. You elected them, and you want to hear from them, and they want to speak with you, and so someone will support that work as well. And then each set of 3 has the same, an executive services advisor, Mr. Jenkins. There he is. And it's Ms. Timberlake. There we go. So for the additional board commissioners that remain. Senior leaders, currently known now as cabinet. I decreased the number of senior leaders from 14 to 9. I moved the director of literacy role to report directly to me to emphasize the importance of literacy in our way forward and what it means for the work that we have to do and the foundation of everything that we're hoping and dreaming to accomplish. So there are 9 positions here: an executive manager, general counsel, transformation officer, assistant superintendent of operations, assistant superintendent of schools, deputy superintendent of education services, facility services officer, special assistant to the superintendent, business financial officer, strategy and performance officer. Strategy and performance officer means that the strategic plan of the district has to be driven, has to be monitored closely. Enrollment goes in there, attendance falls in there, our research goes in there. And so just generally realigning the work and then positioning it to report directly to the superintendent. Our facility services officer is new. I believe that for where we are, certainly I just mentioned a little bit about the infrastructure and our opportunities, but most of you work in the building, so I don't have to tell you what our infrastructure looks like, but for where we're going as well, developing a comprehensive facilities plan that encompasses 200 buildings requires someone to do that work in a dedicated way. The Office of the Superintendent, generally speaking, I eliminated the Chief of Staff office. I have 2 folks with me right now, okay? Well, 3 people: Special Assistant, Executive Manager, Project Supervisor. I am a pretty high-functioning individual, a high-performing individual, and so the 3 individuals here will support elevating that work. If there's a need for additional support, then we'll add it later, but at this point, I didn't feel the need to have an office of 7 to 10 people. Deputy Superintendent of Education Services will be Dr. Whitelaw. Student experience, student wellness, student services, and then what we are calling SOAR schools. Our SOAR schools will have a network leader, operations, talent management, FACE, enrollment. What you see under each school is an ecosystem. And so while these individuals won't report directly to Dr. Whitelaw, we'll pull at least a few representatives from each one of those departments so that you can operate in a more efficient way. You have an enrollment question, there's your enrollment person. You have an opportunity to connect with families, then you have a FACE representative. Operations, anything that falls in there. And then certainly the network leader is responsible for the operational excellence of the network and reporting directly here to the deputy superintendent. Student services, as we think about discipline, Tennessee Safe Schools, SEL work, attendance, 504, you will see attendance show up in each network. 504 work, our civil rights work, will fall under student services. Student wellness, our counseling services, school psychologists, social workers, nurses, and health promotions. And then the student experience, student leadership, special populations, which includes multilingual, SPED, houselessness, and general special populations to ensure that we drill down on that work and underscore that was something that was lifted for me in my huddles. So that's work that we needed to pull out and make sure we provide a more targeted focus. Office of School Transformation, Transformation Officer, Dr. Richmond here. Where is he? Oh, right in the front. Next level readiness, athletics, the hearing office, and SOUP schools. SOUP schools, you've heard me generally say I plan to own that work, the heaviness that comes with it, it being the bulk of our district, and we've also included alternative education there, and then Memphis Virtual School as well. The network leader, generally speaking right now, we're looking for about 4. We have not begun those interviews yet for those who are wondering. I wanted to make sure I got my transformation officer in, and then we'll name the next one and we'll get started. Generally speaking, you still see the same ecosystem there. You see instructional because we'll have instructional coaches, and so that's where the impact will be directly in the classroom, but then certainly someone there representing the Office of Performance and Curriculum and Instruction, guiding that work that's happening for the supports in our classrooms. And then next level readiness, as we draw this out, wherever a kid would like to go, we would like for them to be prepared to get there. And so that's what next level readiness means. I did include the general terminology that we understand, CCTE, so our college and career technical education. JROTC is incredibly important as we work to expand and build that out and give it the emphasis and resources that it needs and deserves. And then STEM, I didn't see that generally speaking as standing out, so I pulled that out as we think about science, technology, engineering, and math, as we think about the new company that's being built here in Memphis, the types of partnerships that we would like to have and provide our students a direct connection to the workforce, not something that we're thinking and hoping that they're able to do, but something that we're able to connect them to directly. So that's where that work will sit. And then the hearing office, that's where our hearing and appeals will sit to ensure that we give every student the due process that they deserve. Generally speaking, I think that position will go up today. If it didn't, it'll go up by tomorrow for our hearing officials. Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Ignite Schools will fall here, and you see the same ecosystem to provide that support. Generally speaking, we're looking for about 2 network leaders here to split about 40+ schools, and we'll rethink it if we need to. The Office of Teaching and Learning will sit here, and then special programs will be seated here as well, which is where charter schools, adult education, advanced academics, and in advanced academics, we're considering early college, dual enrollment, optional programs. Office of Teaching and Learning, curriculum instruction, professional learning, and support, because they go together. Just an example, so you're wondering, well, what does the network of schools look like? You have the network leader and then this ecosystem of folks who are supporting a cohort of schools. There's a legal that sits off to the top because we can't tell legal what to do, but we can say here's a person that this particular network can reach out to, and then legal can disperse the work as necessary. Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, you see transportation, information technology, talent management, nutrition services, all pretty self-explanatory. I did change human resources to talent management. Information technology, I moved it as a standalone to the Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, and then transportation still exists. This is still a draft. Just wanted to make sure it was bigger than anything else, because it will change. Just wanted to show up in your pictures. Facility Services Officer, and so this position I mentioned is new. This will be Ms. Michelle Stewart, a manager of real estate, because you see that, or if you didn't see, we had several applicants for the director or the manager of our real estate. Creating that new department, the district has a lot of prime property, and as you've heard people ask, what's your plan? What are you going to do with all these vacant spaces and land? We plan to make money. So a manager of real estate will assist us there and allow us to paint a real clear way forward. And so the team has been compiling information to create a real estate plan to bring forth to the board for review as we think about our way forward for our current facilities and as we build out for our comprehensive facilities plan. There will be a manager of facility planning. These are not new positions, by the way, at the bottom. They are just pulled out of what was operations and then placed under Facility Services Officer. So all of this informed our budget for the 24-25 school year. Take a step back. What did you do with that $775 million that you received as a district? And here's a general overview. Certainly everything is not listed here, but in large buckets, you see student readiness. Remember, charter schools passed through, wasn't required to give charter schools money, but we did, and so you see that seated there at about $24.7 million. We invested in mental health, special populations, students experiencing houselessness. We provided additional supports for high school students. We invested in high-speed internet. We took a look at how we were supporting our staff by looking at temporary class size ratios, and then certainly math adoptions, blended learning, and then building some literacy, high-quality literacy materials. And then you see tutoring and summer programming as overarching buckets for how the ESSER funds were utilized. Business operations, so infrastructure is generally thought about as just buildings where people go, but an investment in the infrastructure is an investment in student achievement. You know how you feel in a hot building. You know how you feel in a cold building when it should be warm. You know how you feel when the door doesn't twist, your key doesn't work. You know how you feel when you walk up to or drive up to a building, how it makes you feel. All of that matters when we think about not just performance for students academically, but how you feel as a teacher, as a leader, educational leader, as a parent who is visiting, as someone who is moving from out of state and wondering where you've touched down. All of it matters when you arrive on a campus of a school. And so investing in our schools, investing in our infrastructure is paramount. Generally speaking, you could see a $206 million investment that's already at play here. Crosses and spans across playgrounds, windows, foundational work, classroom additions, and that's how we arrived at that $206 million. Chiller rentals. If you ever wondered how much a chiller costs, it's pretty chilling. Airways Middle, Tresvent, Avon Lennox, these are 3 and we are renting them. And so total today here, is this as of today? I don't think this was updated. Okay. 62,000 at Airways, 55 and 50 at Tresvent and Avon Lennox. Additional facility investments. When we think about power outages, we have to send people home. That impacts performance. And so when you look at elementary, it cost us about $35 million. 259 power outages. Elementary and middle, 4.2 million. Middle schools, 8.8 million. And high schools, 43.2 million. We're talking about cost financially, but we're talking about the cost of a power outage when we think about the numbers that I've given you academically, when we think about absenteeism. Once a student goes home for a power outage, if you don't tell them by 5, they're not coming tomorrow either. And so we look and think about what contributes to and goes into the status of the district. It's not all black and white, and we can't just slice it one way or the other. This is multidimensional. Fire life safety, you probably haven't given a lot of attention to this, but fire alarm service calls, fire watches, and water main repairs, this is how much it's costing us to date across elementary, middle, and high schools, $449,000. Infrastructure impact. Generally speaking, the rate of asthma here, the number of students and staff who are having seizures, and generally speaking, we know we have old buildings with the average age being about 60 or so. And so the number of seizures you can see here, this is certainly as of the conclusion of the year. It may have even been in May when I last did the presentation, but certainly an overview of the impact on the health of our students. $58 million came out of our funds on our own, internally, invested in 138 boiler replacement projects. We could build schools for what we're investing in replacing things that continue to break down. And that's just a list of the schools and what it generally cost us to replace the boilers. Construction costs across the district, drainage, fire life safety, replacing or installing HVACs, restrooms to replace at East High School, $400,000. Roof replacements, those in yellow are in progress currently, and the others, here we are. Water bottle filling stations, $108,000, and this is just briefly touching on the impact of our infrastructure. So next is now, how do we get across the hump here? Investing in infrastructure, as I said, is investing in student achievement. Right now we have 209 facilities, and so we've committed to a phase 1 capital investment plan, which I presented and gave to the board, presented publicly, of about 56 spaces that will cost us about $96 million. That's anything from window replacements, HVAC replacements, roof replacements, fire life safety that we just went over, and then a few LED lighting in our athletic fields. And so the list runs the gamut, but $96 million just across 56 spaces, and that work we have to do now regardless of whether anyone provides us $1 today or not. We have to make the investment because that's where students and staff are today. Our comprehensive facilities first iteration assessment, I've made the commitments that we would have that before 2025, April 2025 to the board, of course, but certainly available in a way that we can review with the public by April of next year. As I mentioned earlier, we created the real estate office as a new department, and then community engagement. Our focus here should just be inclusive of community as we move forward and have the real conversations. I think I've heard them call hard conversations, necessary conversations, but they're the conversations that we'll have to have. When we stretch across 209 facilities, I think you understand that we're stretching out a little money across a lot of places to do some very deep work, and we're trying to do deep work in an accelerated way. And so the necessary conversations will have to be held, building by building, product, outcome, student by student, who we're serving, the rate of birth, the enrollment patterns. We'll all have those conversations together. Everyone will come out on the other side as facilities, master people. That's not good enough, is it? This costs $96.7 million, relief for most urgent and prioritized facility needs. And then certainly we're thinking about long-term facilities plan. And in this plan, we're including how do we sustain it so that no one, regardless of who's here as superintendent, board commissioner, or anyone else, will have to endure this again. And so if we sustain our buildings in a better way forward, then we can make the types of investments of $96.7 million into our students and leaders. Expanding access to early and after-school programming. Right now, we serve 7,007 students, either in early or after-school programs. You can see the before and after-school numbers, and then those who attend both. So our commitment is to expand access to after-school, and we plan to do this in several ways, but certainly more importantly and critically, what you see mentioned here is the expectation for students to get involved in something will be placed. I've generally shared that with principals and school teams, but as we place that expectation on our students and families, we'll offer a late bus, and so the bus will be there after school. We haven't determined a time just yet, but the proposal is to offer late bus routes to take our students home. And so several staff have shared that there was a late bus when they attended Memphis City or Shelby County schools. And so Memphis-Shelby County schools will offer the late bus to our students to support our students and also relieve some of that pressure from our families so that they can allow their kids to both be connected without having to worry about how they will get home. This cost, we're anticipating about $14.6 million. We anticipate that we can increase this, by nearly 1,000. Generally speaking, we have been in conversations with partners who are also looking to double this for us. They asked me for my goal. I'd like for us to be serving about 20,000 students. So you can see that we are far away from it, but we do have folks who want to help us get there. Culmination, meaning what we expect on the other side of the investment, is increased achievement. When we give our students more access to homework, support, tutoring, art, and everything that we know that generally could come during an after-school or an early school program, then we can only expect for an increase in something, either attendance, their general morale, their excitement and their connection, their pride in their school, and relationships, which we know is ultimately the key to everything. We also want to give attention to our physical activities. Our students don't move enough, and so we want to provide the opportunity to literally move Memphis by moving some of our students just a little more as well. Attendance, absenteeism, 28.1%, 50.1% for ASD schools that we're receiving. I think that's about a combined rate of about 30% or so. Students have attended 50% or more of the school year, just making the distinction here between chronic absenteeism and truancy. They're not the same in terms of how they're calculated. Truancy rate are those students that have 5 or more unexcused absences, and they are students who are enrolled any time of the year. So they can start in August, they can start in October, and once they reach 5 unexcused absences, they are considered truant. A student that is chronically absent must have been absent 10% or more of the year, but these are students who have had to been enrolled or attended at least half of the school year. So I don't want to get you too far down in the weeds, but just generally want to share why you will hear our focus mainly on chronic absenteeism, but also providing the supports to reduce our truancy rate. How do we plan to do that? That's the commitment that you heard about our attendance agents or attendance specialists. And so you saw a general move and a commitment to keep attendance specialists and add more. So we plan to support 54 schools, and those schools are those who have an absenteeism rate of 25% or higher. We do, generally speaking, have several schools that are just right below the 25%, but this is the threshold where we will begin. And then we have our family engagement specialists, and so every school we plan to have a family engagement special or a family engagement liaison there. This estimated cost is about $2.9 million, with those 54 agents at $53.8 million. On the other side of that, we're still waiting for our results or our attendance rate at the end of the year, but we do anticipate increasing attendance and decreasing truancy and chronic absenteeism. Graduation rate. 2023 rate, you heard me shared earlier, 81.5%, dropout rate of 14.7%. Off-track rate is not really something I don't think we've been hearing or talking about here, but this off-track rate creates the graduation rate and the dropout rate. And so if we're not paying attention to students as they transition to becoming freshmen and as they make the transition as a first-year student to a sophomore, when we lose them there, that's how we come up with a 14.7% dropout rate. If we think about the number of students who are off track right now, and this was updated as of today, we have about 11% of our students, 9 through 11, who are off track. Generally speaking, our commitment here, certainly the attendance agents will support here as we think about the number of students who are having problems getting to school and getting into those gaps. Our commitment, graduation coaches currently exist at our high schools, but we will add an additional graduation coach so that we can focus the work on grade 9 and focus the work on grade 10 while allowing professional school counselors to focus that work on grades 11 and 12. I think if we wrap it around there and all these particular individuals work together, the graduation coach, the professional school counselor, attendance agent, if they're all working together and if they have a dean of students in some places, then that's how that work begins to move. This estimated cost is about $1.5 million. As we think about, we have some graduation coaches already, and we certainly have some attendance agents already, and so that's how we landed there. On the other side of this, we do anticipate an increase in our graduation rate. So we think about the commitment to literacy. Right now, 77% of students are not proficient yet in ELA. And so certainly the basics, this doesn't sound exciting, but reading and writing every day in every class and every campus, that's how we move this. This is just the fundamentals of the work, the foundational piece of the work. It doesn't require us to do anything innovative or anything where we're asking teachers to swing from the ceilings. Just read and write every day in every class at every campus. That's from JROTC to physical education, the weight of literacy, and ensuring that students are literate, meaning they can both read and comprehend and articulate and demonstrate understanding of concepts belongs to all of us, not just our English language arts teachers. That director of literacy position you saw is to support this work. Literacy coaches, we're prioritizing our schools with a letter grade of D or F as we get started. Our communication, we have to increase that with our families and certainly with our students so that they can begin to own their way forward and own their success. And then strengthening our family partnerships by holding that expectation. If you can just show up to at least one teacher family or family teacher conference day, then that will help pave the better way forward. We anticipate this costing us about $20 million for 627 to keep the 627 specialized education assistants positions, and then to have 104 literacy coaches. Culmination, we anticipate increasing our TCAP and EOC growth and proficiency, both different, and then certainly demonstrating at least 80% of our families attending at least one conference throughout the year by doing close monitoring of the same. Math literacy is equally as important, so we're just demonstrating our efforts and commitments here, strengthening our supports. We really leaned into some conversations that we had with students to listen to what they wanted to see, listening to teachers about what they want to see. We understand we have a curriculum opportunity to align better there, and so that work will be a little more extensive. We'll begin that curriculum audit in the fall, but while we do that, there's still work to do, and we generally understand what we need to do in a more committed and consistent way. So master scheduling, double blocking courses for 6th grade students that need it, and then certainly our freshmen who demonstrate the same need in Algebra 1. Mastery project, planning a semester showcase for math proficiency, and allowing students to demonstrate 80% of mastery and including that in their final grade. Peer teaching, we have some excellent students in our spaces who know the work better than we do sometimes, and we understand that from colleague to colleague we get a better understanding of concepts, and so from peer to peer they get a better understanding of concepts as well. So emphasizing and underscoring that work. And then certainly computer-based math programs, a math coach, and professional learning for all staff, strengthening that as we move forward. This will cost us about $1.75 million as we think about Prodigy Camp, Algebra 1 Bridge, and Math Enrichment Camp, and that's about 23,000 students that we project to serve through this commitment here. And on the other side of that, certainly we anticipate increasing the number of students who are scoring proficient and demonstrating growth on any TCAP or end of course exam. Next level readiness. Our commitment here is expanding pathways and partnerships. And so right now you see our current status for middle school and high school. Programming, we're looking at expanding planning and advisement, employability, skill development. This is across elementary and middle school grades, as we often think about employability and skill development only at the high school level. So we have to rethink and make a shift in how we introduce and at what grade level we introduce the exposure to, and then certainly the curriculum and the opportunity to do hands-on, project-based learning experiences for our students. Increasing our collaborations with post-secondary institutions. I think I've generally met with all, with the exception of maybe one of our post-secondary schools here regionally, and then certainly extending around outside of the state to develop partnerships as well. What I've asked for them to do is to carve out something specific for Memphis-Shelby County schools, a scholarship or something to demonstrate a true way forward for students who are graduating from Memphis-Shelby County schools and are interested in their particular spaces. Partnerships, certainly we'd like to strengthen our relationships with some of our local partners here. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure that every school has at least one partner that is working directly with them and supporting them from the business and work and nonprofit community. And as we increase our partnerships, we certainly are excited about increasing the opportunity to provide more internships for our students, apprenticeships for our students, and then externships for our teachers to gain exposure as well. This cost is looking approximately at $1.1 million. Inclusive excellence, when we say all children, we mean all children. So our students at Hope Academy as well. We thought about how we could support and elevate the same for them. During my visit there, had an exciting time just watching our students, but also a very disheartening experience as you think about how they ended there and then what that general journey is for them. And so our commitment here is to expand access to some of the courses that they have an opportunity to experience with, and then implement one-to-one remote for them. They currently do not have this, and so providing technology for them as well is equally as important, and where possible expanding summer programming to those students who need the additional supports in reading and math. This has cost us just what's already allocated in the budget, but we're emphasizing an expanded commitment. I've committed to meeting quarterly with the staff there, and then the staff will meet monthly with the Hope Academy team. Talent management. Certainly we know that we've invested already in our teachers. New teacher salary schedule last year was 35.1, and then new teacher salary schedule fall of 2022 was 7.2. And so fall 2024, we have about 109 candidates in our pipelines for moving leadership forward. We have about 9 pipeline partners in terms of our existing partnerships. Our commitment is to recruit current talent, start with who we have, with the highest starting salary in the state for our teachers, and then target teacher candidates in specific areas, special education, our multilingual learners, our pre-K and end of course subjects for core courses. recruiting and retaining excellent school leaders equipped to support academic achievement, prioritizing human resources at our SOUP schools, and then our international recruitment plan. We have approximately 11,719 multilingual learners, and so certainly the supports that are necessary, we do not currently have at the rate that we need them, and certainly in the numbers that we need. And so we are in conversations with and almost close to putting some ink on the line for Teach Away, Footprints, national organizations with a cadre of leaders who are just waiting to be placed. And so to make that connection, I think we have about 20 who will be joining us in September. We'll receive the other 100 or so starting in January. So when we ask the question, how do you plan to fill these vacancies? We're thinking as far out as we can, being as innovative as possible, while giving the best and most and deepest consideration as possible to our talent that we currently have here. And so the new salary schedule this year was $28.7 million, and that equals over $65 million over 2 years. And our teacher salaries, new school leader salary, we have included in here for our principals and assistant principals a commitment to increase those salaries, and that'll cost us about $6.2 million. And then our existing partnerships cost about $2.7 million. So certainly on the other side of this, we anticipate a decrease in our vacancies and certified positions. We'd like to knock it in half by this summer. We certainly have an ambitious goal of 100% staff and core courses by the first day of school. And then we anticipate increasing staff retention rates by schools with this general commitment in talent management.
Now it's time for the guest preacher. All right, so when we get into budget numbers, when we first start with our budget, it's always involved with enrollment. So as you can see here, what we're projecting for next year is about $107,266. I'll bridge you quickly because you often hear the superintendent say we have 110,000 students and growing. What you don't see here is our pre-K learners because they're funded out of additional funds that doesn't include our general fund. So we're funded by the state and then the county, and it's not included in this. So that when she says 110,000 students and growing, we really do have 110,000 students. We just don't count pre-K because their funding is elsewhere. So over the last couple of years, our enrollment has been stagnant, if you will. And again, that's how we receive money into the district. We're not a revenue generating organization. The only way we get money into the district, aside for when we get into real estate down the line, is getting students in the district. So right now, this additional increase in enrollment is because we're getting 5 ASD schools coming back. 3 of them are going to be district run and 2 of them are going to the charters. So this next slide, I always like to give a quick education. Everybody always refers to us as having a $2 billion budget. Right now, we're slightly under $1.8 billion. When we get to the other side of Tuesday, it may change a little bit, but my promise to you is if it changes, I'll bridge the gap in between what changed. So as I mentioned before, if you look at the top, that's how we get money into the district. The county funding, you see $14 million of county funding. We get county funding by our attendance. So as the superintendent mentioned, our attendance rate, the reason why it's so important is because when kids come to school, and however, if they, with truancy and chronic absenteeism being the way it is, we have the potential of losing funding. So again, one of the reasons why we're making investments in that is, one, obviously we want the kids to come to school, but then also it drives resources in how we support schools. The $514 million comes from so in the county's budget, they have $427 million set aside for education for the county of Shelby. We get about a 77% split of it. The other 23% go to the municipals. We also get sales tax. So on the other side of sales tax, when you guys get Amazon coming to your packages and come to your front door, keep doing so, because when you do so, it comes back to education. Another thing is when you go to Porch and Parlor, folks folly. And when people have a drink or two, we have the mixed drinks tax. And I'm not trying to be funny, but we literally have the mixed drinks tax in here. And when you have mixed drinks, that money goes back to education as well. The city of Memphis, as we affectionately call it, right now we're in year 9. Next year will be year 10 of the settlement that we get from the city of Memphis. We get only $1.3 million in funding for the city of Memphis. The state funding is essentially TISA as well as the summer learning camp. TISA funding, again, as I always like to tell you, currently we get $6,860 for every student that walks through the door for enrollment. Next year, it's going to increase to $7,075 per student, and that's an increase of about $23 million that we'll receive in TISA, projected if the students in the enrollment align. So in addition to that, we get what's called unique learning needs. So one thing that shifted from the BEP to TISA is every kid who is, there's 10 unique learning needs. I won't name them all. You can go check them, but I'll highlight a few. Kids with dyslexia. Obviously, we know we're an urban district, so every economically disadvantaged kids, we get an additional increase of funding for it. Kids with disabilities, there's about a 25% rate of TISA money that we get. We also get outcome bonuses. We got about $8 million this year, so the reason why we're investing so heavily in CCTE and things of that nature is because on the other side of it, one, we want to see kids excel, but we also get funding every time those students get certifications and increases and such. The federal money amount you'll see here, that's where we get money from JROTC. It's a federal grant that we for our JROTC program. The $4.3 million in other local sources that you see under the general fund, this money surrounding our investment income. The trustee at Regions Bank holds all of our cash. Recently, investment has been really well over the last 3 years, so we project about $4.3 million in investment income. And then finally, you see operating transfers. That comes from over on the federal line. So when we manage federal grants, there's what's called indirect costs, or I like to affectionately also call it as a management fee. We get revenue into the general fund for managing those grants. So that's what makes up our $1.2 billion on the general fund side. If you go over to the next lane in capital improvement, that's where we get money from the county to do capital improvement. Right now, we're being ambitious, and we have $96 million in that amount for the $96 million that we mentioned before. May or may not get it, but right now, again, we'll be ambitious. If you're tuning in on Monday, the county plans to talk about and or approve their budget, so we'll be looking forward to see what they give. Also in these numbers is years 2 of the new bills. Right now, we have recently broken ground on Frazier. We're still talking about the new East Region High School in Cordova. So right now, what you see of that is the 2 bills, also the $96 million that makes up our CIP or our Capital Improvement Fund. Next is our Special Revenue Fund, and we affectionately call it Fund 8. That $51 million, the majority of it is 2 things. First is First Aid. As I mentioned before, one of the pre-K grants we get is First Aid. That's in that number as well. Then the larger number is when we talk about CCTE investment, we got an ISM or grant for CCTE. Next year starts year 2 of it. It's a 3-year grant. It was $44.3 million. What it allowed us to do is the state gave $1 million to every high school, $500,000 to every middle school to be able to build out CCTE programs. Next, nutrition. Nutrition is what it is. That's how we pay. And that's the $88 million that we get from the USDA. That's how we feed the students. The nutrition workers are in there, nutrition staff is in there, food supplies is in there, and things of that nature. Next, going over to federal programs, as everybody like to affectionately think about over the last years, or one of the reasons why we got to $2 billion is we had the $776 million that the superintendent mentioned in the first slide. This is the ending of ESSER. It technically ends in December, so that's why you see that decrease over the years where they used to be $800 million in federal funds. What you will still see there is we always get Title I. Title I we get in is for our economically disadvantaged students, giving them the same opportunity and equities as every other student. We also have Title II. Title III is for our multilingual learners, and Title IV as well. So those grants that we get every year are in at $255 million. And then lastly, you'll see Internal Service Fund. Internal Service Funds is our internal funds that we have. We have a printing shop, we have a warehouse as well. So that's what we keep. So that's what makes up the $1.8 billion. A couple things to remember, and with the $1.2 billion, which is the operating fund, 51% of our operating fund or of our entire budget is personnel. So when we talk about things all the time, and it becomes a hard conversation, the first thing that unfortunately that we have to cut when we think about the pressures that we have is personnel. And we always have to watch and look at how our personnel creeps, because again, you don't want to increase personnel and have to look at the adverse effect of laying people off if you have to. We always, again, support schools. $500 million of that is how we support schools. We pay teachers, principals, support staff, and things of that nature. As the superintendent mentioned, if you'll go down, you see online where charter schools is. As you can see in our operating fund, we send out $254 million out the door to charter schools. Again, those are the numbers that we look at what's called fixed and mandated costs. Those are things that we cannot cut from the budget. We have to pay $92,986,239 for SPED maintenance of effort. That means that every student that has a disability, we have to pay that amount of money, and it can't be a cent less in order for us to get IDA funds. So those are some of the things that we absolutely have to do with our budget. You want me to keep moving? It's your turn.
All right, so we've heard you, the feedback, we've listened to you over a short amount of time, but certainly digging in some deeper work. And so while the budget that, Mr. Langston, you were a little nervous. Just wanted to break the ice a little bit. The room is a little tight. All is well. All is well. I appreciate you. That's a good partner there. It's a good teammate. We are holding space in the budget, as you saw, for principal increases in salary and assistant principals. As we think about the work that happens, and I don't know you all, but I loved my custodian in school, and I certainly loved all of the ones that I had as a teacher, as a principal, assistant principal. And so our goal here in having a conversation with board commissioners is how do we bring this in-house? Let me say back in-house, because I understand it used to be here. So how do we bring it back in-house? And so we're holding and earmarking, about $43 million to bring that in. And so you're asking, well, what do we pay? I think it's about 32. So if you think about what it costs and what we're paying, and we think about elevating services, and that's at a higher rate so that we can really go out and compete and get the individuals that we need. When you feel a part of your school community, you do great work. And I think that's just as simple as that, no matter what your position or title is. But they do great work. And so we want to bring that back in-house. We thought about our craftsmen and the pay increase that is necessary for that work. And certainly, as you think about mental well-being, so here's for you, We Care Day. One day it's yours. You choose it, you take it, and when you click on it, you'll be reminded that we care, because that's what it will say. Mental Health Day for all, whatever title, whatever category. I think that when we think about mental health, it is not for me to determine how you feel. Some days you just don't want to go, and you don't have to be sick to not want to go, or just generally need to get yourself together. You just want to lay in the bed for a little while longer. Then take your day. You get one day. You don't lose it. I mean, if you don't use it, now you lose it. And so we do want us to be better about taking care of ourselves and giving attention to ourselves. So if we give you one, I know you'll taste at least that one while you save up the rest that you have earned, because those days come very slow as you accrue them. And so we'll start with one for sure. You don't have to ever tell me that you're using it, but I'll look though to see how many people use their We Care days. But that's one of our ways to focus on it. Certainly, employee assistance program, we already have that, but just want to make sure we lift that comes along with your benefits. Use it. There's nothing wrong with reaching out to talk to someone. We have virtual folks who are available. Take care of you, whatever that means for you. A universal screener, as we think about our students, screening all of them for this, they would have to opt in, but at least providing it. Where we do that work is where we see more intensive services that are needed for students. We're able to make the immediate referral so that they get the supports that they need and have the conversations with their parents and families as well, so that we walk this journey without anyone feeling like it's a stigma, to be able to receive the type of attention and general support that is necessary for you. So just wanted to make sure we underscored how we're thinking about our mental. MSCS Matters. So we'll upgrade the Parent Welcome Center to the MSCS Matters, because all things MSCS, call center is there. We will offer more enhanced customer service for support for our district matters. You'll see there where we'll strengthen our regular business hours for support. Folks are at school, and so we got to back up the time that we are available, 6:30 there. And then we'll add an after-hours phone support via remote job opportunities. And so for me, it is about how do we better serve the folks, create more jobs, but also meet the needs. Everybody doesn't work 8 to 5, and there are concerns and questions that you have. And if you're working during the day, you should not feel that you are not supported and you don't have anyone to reach out to, because I think we know folks stop checking emails at some point, but you might answer that. We can answer the phone. And so being able to do that from Hawaii or wherever you are, we want to be able to support you as you support us, and knowing all things Memphis-Shelby County Schools, about how to answer and really make folks feel connected to the work that we are doing, and certainly before they conclude the call that they've received the support that they need. All right.
If you have not completed a comment card, please feel free to wave your hand and staff will get a card to you or pick yours up. These questions are for the superintendent, administration, and for the board. Okay. First question, how can we, the community, public, and stakeholders better support your vision to change the current MSCS culture as it stands?
So I think as I've had the conversations with thousands of people, what I've named one is to show up, and you're here. Be present. And I know that there are hundreds watching on, maybe thousands, I'm not sure, but I know that there are people also watching online. Stay connected. Wherever we are discussing the livelihood, the supports, the trajectory of our kids, the ultimate space and culture of our city, as we know we are the anchor for being the largest district, certainly in the state, but we are the hub here. We are the pillar, and so everything starts with us. As the district goes, so goes the city, the community, the workforce, and all things connected. So show up. Ask the right questions. They might sound hard, but no question is a bad question. Ask questions, be informed. Whether you are a taxpayer, whether you have kids in the district, or you generally just want to see the district do well. Also, show up in our schools. We need volunteers, we need mentors, we need support during testing. We need folks who are ready to give of their time. When students know that adults take time out of their day to show up and support them, it changes the game for them. Think in terms of the vision as well as we think about academics. Ask those questions of teachers. Make sure you're reading with your kids at home. Encourage reading. Make it fun. This doesn't have to be, just a knockout, drag out experience for our students. I want school to be cool again for kids. I absolutely adored and enjoyed my learning experience. I would go back and do it all over again, from Head Start all the way forward to the University of Alabama, where I got my first C and cried. And So that's where you can lean in and support the vision. Continue to hold me accountable as superintendent. I don't look for easy, and so this is not easy work, but it is possible work, and it is certainly possible if we all go together. And so those are a few ways that the community can support the vision.
Thank you. This question is for the school board. If the board has traditionally left the job of administration in the hands of the superintendent, why feel the need to draft a resolution to prevent her from doing the job? Let's give the school board an opportunity to reply to the questions.
I'll take the question.
Yes.
So that's fair, and I wasn't a drafter, but I was a supporter of the resolution, and have had deep talks with the superintendent prior to that and since that. I hope we continue to make the conversations and questions today about the budget, about what you care about, what the superintendent has presented, and primarily the impact to you as employees for the investments and your concerns about any gaps in services from the standpoint of impacted employees, impacted services. This board, who voted unanimously to support the superintendent, remain resolute in that position. We continue to tell the superintendent and will show the superintendent through our support of that budget that we're 100% committed to this district, committed to our teachers, from custodial workers up to central office. But every job matters. When you ask about culture and climate, it's from the bottom to the top. It's clearly communicating where we are. It's clearly informing employees that we still want you to be with the district, but you're going to have to take a reduction in pay in order to continue this work. It's clearly articulating that we want to drive as many dollars back to the district. And I committed to the superintendent that I too will own as a board member. We appreciate the superintendent's statement today that for those who were offended for opening letters and having their salaries cut, that she apologized. You heard the superintendent say that we will do better in our communication and bringing the board along. And we too, as board members, knew that this budget process started back in November. As a board, we knew that the ESRA funded was coming to an end. But we will continue to never apologize for showing dignity to anybody that have given 20 plus years to this work and now having to be told that you may have to go home. It's a painful process, one that we haven't seen in over a decade. And that resolution is what I think brought us to this point. As the superintendent indicated, thousands of people paying attention to this work, thousands of people hopefully that will advocate with us at the county commission, because we have no funding ability. In order for the superintendent vision to really be recognized, it's not the resolution that we passed Tuesday, it's for the funding body to support that budget. That's where our work has to be unified, and I hope that we can stay together for that. So again, restating the obvious, we're 100% committed to the superintendent and her vision.
Thank you. Next question. If an employee is inactive in the system after June 30th, how will they continue to get paid? Without an active job placement line, payroll is unable to process payroll. If something will be done differently, when will human resources be notified?
I feel like I was about to say Tito Langston, Memphis-Shelby County School. I was at the county commission yesterday. So to that end, we have an internal process that we're going to work through, and we'll roll it out to ensure. I think the superintendent mentioned our commitment is nobody will lose pay. That's still our commitment. We have an internal process that the team is working through. So again, our commitment is that nobody will lose pay, and we'll roll out the plan as needed.
Thank you.
When we're ready, rather.
Okay. This is a comment. Compensation for sign language interpreters needs to be increased so those who want to have a vested interest can make a living wage. Agency interpreters make 3 times more than Mscs interpreters.
Absolutely. And to that end, as we listed some of those opportunities in the presentation, nutrition services, craftsmen, custodial for sure, principals, assistant principals. We did not forget about our American Sign Language interpreters, our speech pathologists, additional positions. So it's not finished. This is not conclusive. So please don't leave with that. And also to that end, we developed certainly a student multilingual learner translator job, and so that is posted to give students opportunities to work. And in that same vein, I charged the team with creating a pipeline and a pathway to expand and increase the number of students to serve in this purpose as well for our ASL work. And so you can look forward to seeing that being rolled out as we look to grow our own, because we too are an employer, and so we can start within, expand it, utilize the services of our students now, and certainly pay them for the same as we build out our pipeline. But certainly, to directly answer the question, the increase for that particular employee group is not lost on us. So do not take this presentation as all conclusive. I wanted to share with you from phase one. That's why it's called phase one, and ongoing, right? You continue to look at the status of a space, an organization. I'm a business major by trade, and so that is one of the things that you do. It is continually looking at the services and how those services are meeting the ultimate goal, the vision and mission of the organization. I appreciate that question.
Okay, another comment. Teachers are very stressed with all the demands of central office staff when those staff need to be in schools to help the kids. Many of these kids come from fatherless homes. We need teams in our schools. My school did not have a team this year, and there were many discipline challenges. It was too much for the principals to have that extra load. Because of teachers being dissatisfied with central office staff and expectations, my school has lost half its staff these last 2 years.
Will you clarify, a teen or teen? Didn't have a team?
Teams in our schools, is that correct? Okay.
A dean.
Excuse
Didn't have
my
a dean in your
I was
school.
deciphering.
There you
Excuse
go.
me.
Okay.
Deans. We
Yeah, you didn't have a
need
dean.
deans.
So were you excited to see the dean? I think you clapped, didn't you? Dean of students, absolutely. I see you. Come from a space of dean of students being a role that is in a school for that very purpose. What I want to make sure, though, as we implement this position and this role, is that we don't create it as a disciplinarian role, because that's ultimately what it gets left with. You just do the discipline. But certainly not having a dean, I'm glad you value and understand the role, but we do look forward to providing those roles for sure. I think you ultimately opened up your question about central office providing supports, and so you can expect to see that. And as you saw, the ecosystem that was generally displayed, that was the purpose of that for sure, is how do we ensure that supports in schools are actually supported by the central office. And so those particular, under that network leader, those are all individuals who represent a space in central office to provide that deep support, immediate support, so that you're not waiting. We try to take out the layers that you have to go through to receive response or generally just receive supports. But in terms of instruction as well, that's why you saw moving the instructional facilitators into schools, literacy coaches. I won't mess up all of the acronyms that exist right now, but anyone who is seated in the curriculum and instruction and the professional development office will all be in schools providing direct supports to our teachers in their respective capacity. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, and thank you. With open positions, will candidates be required to be certified as a teacher or administrator? Basically asking if a certification or licensure is required for any and all academic or leadership positions.
I think that varies by the role. So certainly if you were in a role where you were expected to evaluate principals, so you would naturally need the certification there. In our spaces for family engagement specialists, attendance agents, those are a bit more, flexible in terms of what is requirement. So just generally read what those particular credentials and academic requirements are on each job description as you peruse the site.
Okay. In the cost for before after-school programs, does that include stipends for the teachers running the programs?
I think you're asking about this particular slide here. Just want to confirm before I say yes or no. Here? Is this what we're talking about? So this cost here is just, what would it cost if we increased the number of bus routes? So this is just to expand our bus routes for students. This is not stipends or anything employee related. Good clarifying question.
Okay, thank you. What will happen to, or how will the CCTE funds be spent? And it, in parentheses, millions of dollars. Will teachers, experts decide, or administration?
Right. As a CTE teacher, appreciate that question. You should be receiving, in a near future, an opportunity to contribute to the conversation about that. I think generally speaking, some of it has been earmarked just based on the general needs of where we would need to expand, complete. So we do a great job at starting a pathway, right? You might have course number 1, 2, but then we need to complete some pathways. So there's some investment there, but then there's certainly some opportunities to think about where we need to place more programs strategically across the 9 districts. You saw that we had 2 middle school pathways, which is not great, but we're being honest about where we are. And then you saw that we have 41 across our high schools. And so how do we improve that? Where are they seated? What do our students want, right? And so certainly we'll include the voices of those who are leading the work and also the beneficiaries of the same.
Okay, another CCTE question.
All right.
The $1 million per high school CCTE, will those funds update the 1970s appliances? Example, stoves in which to teach the students?
Great question.
I'm reading.
Tossing it to Langston.
Did the same person go back to back? Now,
It's a different person.
I got you. So to dive deeper into the $44.3 million grant that we got. So again, $1 million. I don't know. Stephanie sounded like she said $1 billion. $1 million to every high school, and $500,000 for middle school. So the school leaders had an opportunity in each of the high schools, who's doing good. Gotcha. So again, each high school got $1 million. So each high school has a designated CCTE path, STEM, business, ag, things of that nature. So the opportunity is the state allowed them to build plans for their specific pathways. So again, if you pick manufacturing, for example, you got an opportunity to upgrade your labs as well as anything that you had in your schools for equipment, and then that $1 million. The same for middle schools, which most middle schools aren't built out for CCTE. So they're taking an opportunity to upgrade or create labs, if you will. So that's the going trend of what's been happening with the $44.2 million for the CCTE.
Thank you for being an educator that is intentional for the scholars and I'll repeat that on the mic for those, the viewing audience, recognizing them. Thank you for being an educator that is intentional for the scholars and city. Next, will these changes affect vendor support in the schools? Are you saying different programs, for example, should partner with one school to assess data and help with improvement? Sure. Will these changes affect vendor support in the schools? Are you saying different programs, for example, should partner with one school to assess data, and improve schools?
I hope I understand the question correctly. If not, certainly email me. But what I am interpreting from the ask is, would I like to see businesses partner with schools to certainly support the way forward as we monitor important data, but more importantly, the educational experience of our students? And yes, that is what I'm saying. There are thousands of businesses. I think someone said 12,000 nonprofits. And so if we generally speaking, just get at least one for every school, and to deeply invest in our schools, whatever that looks like, whatever the needs are for that respective school, then absolutely that is the ask. And we have enough folks who can do that, and we generally have enough who want to do it. What I am also sharing is there has to be some impact there. And so if we're investing in the thing, how do we monitor the thing? And then certainly when I look for the impact report, it should say that we accomplished those things. And so hopefully I answered that question. If not, certainly you can email me directly.
Okay. As an ELA teacher, it makes me happy to hear your huge push for literacy. I teach 3rd grade and am very passionate about reading to my students. I do novel studies and was literally told I shouldn't be reading to my students. There's a little detail here that I won't say on the microphone that I'll share with you because it addresses a concern. The staff person did not like my students having books on their desks, didn't like seeing novel study on my agenda, even though it was at the bottom. The staff person ran off several amazing teachers or made them too scared to read to their students. I did not stop and will not stop doing my best to spread my passion of reading. I thank you for all you've done to already change this district.
Yeah, so I would love to read the additional part of the concern, but generally speaking, I'm holding fast to we're going to read and write every day in every class at every campus, and those who are in leadership will be charged with the same. Whatever's attached to my evaluation will also be attached to theirs, and you better believe that reading every day as it concerns moving not just literacy, but creating a sharper generation of kids who fall in love with the same, and they begin to ask the sharp questions that they need to ask. They can show up in these types of rooms and own them as well. They can start their businesses and go to college. And so in order to provide the types of options and the type of life that they deserve to live, we're going to read and write every day in every class at every campus.
Thank you. Yes, sir. For anyone with a concern, make sure on your card, you can come back and see us after, how to reach you, email you, or come up. I did read the entire card except for the portion that named the specific individual. What is your plan to attract, retain more SPED teachers? We have a major shortage.
Yes, we do. So flirted with, didn't land on, but it's still room, just a little bit, in the budget. Try to put my bag to them when I spend some money. To provide bonuses to attract our exceptional education teachers. We've done this in previous spaces and it's worked. Little careful about it because it's not just let's throw money at you and then you come and we don't get the return, right? And so still balancing that, but that's one way. The other way is just ensure that we are, recruiting, our recruitment efforts. There was gonna be a really innovative way, but then I realized I probably shouldn't spend that much in month one on the job, and so delayed that, but being more innovative about and expansive about our approach. I want folks to come from as far away as Massachusetts as they have applied to come, and as far away as New Mexico, and those certainly deep in the South, folks who want to come here and do this work. And so it's also about creating the energy that we can sustain, the type of culture that folks want to be a part of. I tell folks there that they want to come back to the district. That's my type of language. And so it is just making sure that we are clear in who we need, certainly about a high expectation. We're desperate, but we're not desperate, if that makes sense. And then certainly willing to pay where we need to, because that is a targeted area that we need a lot of support in, and we need it immediately. But as I mentioned earlier, we are connected to national organizations who are prepared to share with us or send to us several hundred individuals. We're just working that plan and how we support the arrival and then certainly support the journey of those individuals.
Thank you. Another CTE question.
All
As
right.
a standalone CTC center,
Yeah.
why did the high schools get $1 million and middle schools get $500,000 and the center got nothing?
Great question. Somebody say, that's a great question, but that's probably a question built for the state. So the grant came from the state, and that's how they allocated the monies out. But what I can say is that schools have an opportunity. So what you know about our CTC centers is that our schools feed into the centers. So schools have an opportunity to pool those funds, and we have the opportunity to invest in those centers where the students go that come from those schools. So one of the first questions that we asked the state is, was that allowed? And they said yes. So that is an opportunity for high schools that's in the area of a CCTE to pool their funds, invest in that center, and then the students see the other side of the outcome.
Thank you. A SPED recommendation. We have a major shortage of SPED teachers in the district. We could have a rearrangement of rules into SPED positions. There could also be a bonus for SPED teachers to attract, retain these teachers. We could also look at overall SPED expectations and paperwork expectations between MSCS and other districts. Why are other SPED teachers going to other districts?
Okay, that was sharp. Why are they going to other districts? I'm really not sure. I think folks leave for different reasons. Certainly, culture is named. I think I've reviewed some exit selections in some resignations, and some of it is general retirement. Others have named direct supervisor, some challenges there. And so there's some opportunities for us to really lean in relationships and support, how we think about and treat people. I think money does play a role, compensation, but more importantly, when you think about the work that you do compared to the money that you receive, I think that's where we get into a real conflict for that particular role. It's a very dynamic role. I mean, you have to understand a lot. There's certainly a load of paperwork that we are looking at in terms of how do we decrease that. Much of that is, not determined by us, but there is certainly a better or more efficient workflow in terms of systems and how we think about the work, our timeliness of our expectations. So certainly there's an opportunity for us in leadership to think about that. I appreciate that question. Been reflecting on it a lot, but I do think that person lifted bonuses, which is what I did share previously.
Okay. Will there be an increase for the providers of services rendered to be compliant for IEPs? As there are students that were neglected and didn't receive services all year due to staffing issues and pay discrepancies. I'll read it again. Will there be an increase consideration for the providers of services rendered to be compliant for IEPs, as there are students that were neglected and didn't receive services all year due to staffing issues and pay discrepancies?
I'll take that one offline to provide a more detailed response. What I will share is, as we think about the services that our students are required to receive, we certainly have looked at that and that work, and there is a gap. And so I own that, but I'll provide a specific response if that individual will share their information as we look at it individually.
Last one. I represent my school at Cape Bon Elementary. Most all MSCS teachers agree that funds need to be moved more into the school's classrooms versus so much in central office. The superintendent is correct. These cuts have been overdue. More teachers could quit without those cuts. Thank you.
Board?
Before we go, can we give the audience a round of applause for great questions? Thank you.
Mr. Langston, this question is for you, and I think I got it about 25 times for my retirees. Page 22 shows retiree benefits cut, $3 million some dollars. That's big. Can you explain that to the ones who are listening? I sent that question to you.
Great question. So first of all, there's no cut per se. So if you look at the trends, if you want to, so there's quick education. There's the budget book, and then there is the affectionately known as the AFR, which is AFR, which is the annual financial report, which we share actuals of how we spend every penny in the district. So when you look over the past 3 years, 4 years ago, that budget used to be $28.3 million. Recently, it has dwindled down to under $24 million. So again, in an environment where we have to take cuts, you want to look at your actuals and your trends that it's been. So it's been trending towards under $25 million. So we set the budget at $25 million. So what I can tell you is that for whatever reason, that doesn't mean that we won't provide benefits to our retirees. If for some reason that exceeds that we would have to cover it as a district. So again, that was just an opportunity to take the budget to what the trends has been in the last 3 years to set the actuals to the budget, if that makes sense.
Okay, that was for a couple of people, so I'll ask you, and then I'll just email the rest so we won't be here all night. It was stated that the general fund's revenue increased by $24 million from the last 2025 budget proposal in Tuesday's meeting. The base revenue was given as the cause. However, the last time that the revenues were shown in March, it was $1.207 billion. It is now $1.272 billion. That's a $65 to $66 million difference. What expenditures are now in the budget that were used for that?
Great question. So I think what I alluded to on Tuesday is that TISA, again, as I mentioned today, it drove up $23 million. So again, I also mentioned that outcomes we received from as well. So again, just a quick education. In November, we don't have baseline estimates of what the budget is. So what we do is use what was prepared before. So when people say that we had a $150 million gap in November, I always explain to you that was never the case, because there was only the starting point before we actually know what revenues came in. So what the team does is we true up revenues every month to get to the other side of June. What I can also tell you is that we actually won't know what we actually have until actually July. So we're making estimates, and what I can also tell you is that we've been pretty good with estimates over the past few years. So the $65 million you alluded to is a couple things. It's the $23 million that we received from TISA from going to 6860 to 7075. It's also outcome bonuses that we didn't project in last year's budget, this current year budget, because we just didn't know what the outcomes would trend. So that's about a $12 million increase for outcomes. Also, as I mentioned before, the trend has been going up for sales tax. So we increased it a little bit for sales tax. So then you ask, what did the money go to? The superintendent just presented everything that we're spending in this budget in terms of investments. That's where the investments go to, directly back into the classroom. So when you see we increase the teacher's salary, when you see we increase teacher pay, when you see we're going to pay craftsmen, when you see we're going to pay nutrition workers and things of that nature, when you see we're planning for after-school programs, when you see we're investing in literacy coaches, when you see we're investing in family engagement specialists, when you see we're investing in literacy, when you see we're investing in all of these things, when our revenues increases, we want to put it directly back into the classroom.
All right, great answer. My last one, how much in savings are you reducing in the big bucket without a long statement? Give me the big buckets for the listening audience. For example, salary savings, positions reductions, that kind of stuff. Can you speak to that? Or if not, you can speak to me offline.
I think I'll take that offline, but one more other thing I want to mention to you too is that also when we increase our revenues, I always remember the more revenue we get, the more we send to charter schools as well. So remember, every time we get more, we send more out as well. So again, if anybody's keeping count, I'm happy to have a budget 101, 102, 103 discussion with anybody at any time to allow us to have an education. Matter of fact, I think we'll do that for next budget cycle, which is I can take that one offline.
And that's good, but I think when you say the more we get, the more we give to charter schools, I want to be clear.
Yes, ma'am. Because
the money that comes to us from the state, it is to be given to them.
Yes,
correctly?
ma'am. Absolutely.
All right. I just want to make sure that was clear. I don't want anybody to misinterpret that. Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, that's fair. No.
Is there an effective date whereby the budget has to be presented to the state for approval, or can there be an extension of that?
Great question. So by law, we have to present a budget to the state. We have to send a budget to the state by June 30th. So for whatever reason, if you didn't approve a budget, we would have to go with a continuation budget.
And how long does that last?
It'll last till we actually approve a budget. But again, by law, we have to send up we have to send a budget to the state by June 30th.
Is there any data, Dr. Fagan, that correlates student attendance to achievement that you might have? Because I know we talk about achievement a great bit and we want all of this destruction to occur, but students have to show up at school too. So we have a huge problem with student absenteeism in this district. Is there data that we have gained from and gleaned from the achievement of those students who are consistently absent?
Yeah, so I didn't lift it here because we'd really be here all day. But certainly we have the data, taken a look at the data about cross-referencing the number of students who are experiencing chronic absenteeism, certainly the number of students who are experiencing truancy, how many of those students overlap, taking a look at those students who fit in either category, certainly both, and then looking at their performance respectively. And absolutely, Commissioner Williams, there is a direct correlation. Before we look at anything else, I think we know that if a student is not in school, they generally do not perform well. We have some outliers where they can skip school and still show up, and perform well. But generally speaking, if a student is not present to receive the instruction that is generally provided, then we do see a direct relationship with a general underperformance.
If I may, Madam Superintendent, I don't want to jump in front of anyone else, but I did want to just remind my colleagues that, and showing a great deal of deference to my co-chairs of the Budget Committee, we do have time earmarked on Tuesday. I think we're waiting on a time. I do think that Superintendent and our CFO is planning to again present and make space for this body to continue to hear more around personnel impact, encouraging employees both that are excited about the superintendent vision as well as those with concerns to continue to engage board members as well as administration on that budget impact as we get closer to passing this budget. I remind my colleagues as well as I often have this engagement with the superintendent. We entrust personnel and that to the superintendent is what we do. We have one employee and that is the responsibility of the superintendent but it's our vision. And we must dig into this budget and ask hard questions to make sure that the question that Mr. Williams just asked about the return on investment from a savings impact as well as an academic impact. But I just want to be respectful of the time. And as we ask questions, let's know that we also have this engagement again on Tuesday. Thank you.
Dr. Fagans, thank you so much for.
Jumping ahead, hold on.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Board Member Love,
Oh,
Board
okay.
Member Garcia, Board Member Love, Board Member Williams.
I noticed that you didn't say anything about the security.
Your question asked me not to answer it in public.
I noticed that you didn't say anything about the security team, the department.
Regarding,
What are you going to do with them? Increase them or just?
there was a general reduction of, I think, of 3 people. And the safety and security, 3 reductions.
Next question. You said that you were going to cut some services. I would be interested to know what service you were going to cut. Contracts.
Sure, I think we reviewed some of those, but I can review them again with you, line by line.
Yeah.
Board Member Hugh Garcia.
I want to thank you for sharpening the presentation that we saw at our board retreat. I was taking notes about where we saw some additions, metrics, some of the changes in the numbers and overall investment. I sent a long list of questions, and I've noted where you've satisfied a lot of those tonight, particularly on some of the where people fall, but also hearing the impact to what board member Woods shared. My questions were, how will this impact achievement? How will the work get done? Where will those things be going? And I appreciate the extra clarity. There is one question that I sent, and I think it's connected to a bigger picture about what current employees were saying, particularly who were transitioning back to a classroom. And I want to ask out loud tonight about our plan for years of service for employees who are in instructional roles who will be returning to the classroom. What is the plan for that? Will they receive a one-to-one honoring of their years of service if they were in an instructional role?
And for the response to that question, to see how the state determines service, because that's all we go by, is what the state honors for service. In terms of direct classroom teaching instruction, that's what we would go by. So that was the purpose of introducing the conversion table, to honor all service, so that if you have 28 years but only 17 are in the classroom, to do that conversion. So years of experience of 0 to 3 would be on step 1, or whatever the next step would be, so to generally give you some experience or to account for the same. And so we didn't put that in the budget or in this presentation tonight because it requires a little more time to walk through, but that was the purpose of introducing that, to honor experience in general. But as it concerns direct teaching experience, I'm not familiar enough with state of Tennessee laws and what that looks like in terms of honoring that. But I generally shared during the huddles in April that we didn't have to honor it if you're coming, or if you're going back, but we do have to honor it if you're coming up, or is it vice versa? We have to honor the teaching experience if you're coming up, or we have to honor. Yeah, that's what I thought. We have to honor it if you're coming up to central office.
Okay, so
But if you're returning from central office or going to central office to a school, it's not a requirement.
certainly, and I'm referring to central office employees who would be supporting principals, working on curriculum, coaching teachers, not someone who may be doing something that is not academic related. I understand that that is not a conversion that we would make, so I'll be interested to see what our final conversion and policy is based on what the state says. So I want to make sure that we're compensating our certified teachers who are eager to go back into the classroom.
Board Member Williams?
Dr. Fagan, if the person,
I'm sorry.
hold on, if the person has a certificate for the position with which they held a professional license,
Yes, sir.
that they must have to hold the position, whether they're inside or outside of the classroom.
Yes, sir.
Are you saying that is the possibility that they would not be given service for that?
No, that's not what she asked, Commissioner Williams.
Well, she said if they were outside of the classroom, but they were in a professional position that required certification.
Would they be compensated for their services if they
Yes.
were going to be observing leaders, is what Commissioner Hewitt Garcia's question was.
But in order to have done that, that person
They
had
would
to
have
have
to-
a state
that is
certification
correct.
to do so.
Yes, sir.
Which gave them the legitimacy to do it. So coming back into the classroom, I don't see how they would lose that right of experience.
I'd have to follow up with you, Commissioner Williams, because I'm not generally following the discrepancy that you're highlighting.
All right.
Member Johnson?
All right. I would like to say thank you, Dr. Fagans, for presenting a clear and concise plan. Like Amber Garcia, she took most of what I wanted to say, but I really tie what you said. Last week, I was able to go over to Hamilton and meet with Principal Dwala. And the one thing he was doing was he was taking steps to reintroduce CTE programs. Thank you for that, because when I was coming along, Hamilton was big on CTE. We didn't call it CTE. We didn't call it that. We called it auto mechanics. We called it dry cleaning. And these were actual classrooms inside of the building. If you go through those classrooms, you will still see the names of the classes that were in the classrooms. So I thank God for you, for all that you do, and keep doing it.
At this time, we would like to thank our very own Superintendent Fagans, our CFO Langston, and each and every one of you for being here today. This is just the beginning. We will work through this budget process. We will get to the other side. As our superintendent say, now is the time. So we will continue on Tuesday at 3:30. There will be another briefing for the board members to ask more in-depth questions if they have more questions. So we We're not hiding anything. It will be right here in the board auditorium, open to the public, that anybody wants to come by. We thank you for your time. We hope you have a good evening. This meeting is adjourned.